I would like to begin today by thanking you for completing the variation of a KWL chart. It gave me the insight that I needed to plan today's meeting. I had been hearing a great deal of chatter about PARCC and the number of resources that are out there and how there's too much to cover and not enough time, all of which made me think we needed to stop and take a breath and develop a plan for getting from point A to point B. For those of you that have known me for a long time, you know that I'm not an all about the test type person. Yes, that catchy song all about the bass is stuck in my head, but rather that I believe that great teaching always has to be the priority. In today's world, great teaching is built from the foundation of the Common Core. If we are going to be successful with having our students learn and be able to take the PARCC with confidence, when we need to do the hard work associated with the standards, we cannot keep doing what we have done in the past because we like it, or because we feel comfortable with it, or because it makes our lives easier. So the focus of our work today will be to make sure that we're all on the same ground floor with the same basic concept, and then to allow you to work to cross-grade level teams to do some of the work that you identified needed to be done. Today, you'll be given back your KWL charts, along with the 2 checkoff sheets from the past 2 superintendents' meetings for your reference. At the end of today's meeting, you'll be completing an exit ticket in Google Docs. That way you'll have a record of all that you've done so far in terms of PARCC. For today's meeting, we'll focus on ELA. In January, we'll spend some time focusing on math. Today, we will develop an understanding that if we do the hard work of implementing the standards, we are doing the work that is needed to be prepared for PARCC. We will work towards having everyone begin to speak the same language. Please see the start items on the glossary handout from PARCC. We will develop an understanding of the importance of the evidence table to our work with the Common Core. We will analyze and discuss the PARCC rubrics. We will work in teams to develop our next learning goals for both students and ourselves. 2 standards are always in play, whether items are focused on reading or writing. These standards are Reading Standard 1, Use of Evidence, and Reading Standard 10, Complex Text. I have found that one of the easiest and most efficient ways to work with the standards lies with the use of the evidence table. It is helpful to become familiar with the evidence statements. They take each standard and break it into a measurable chunk so that it can be assessed. We need to teach to the standard, measure to the evidence statement. Even pre-K2 teachers should be looking at these tables because, as you know, the standards are written so that they increase in complexity, but the baseline premise remains the same. The reading standard and writing standards in grades 3 and 4 look like something like students will read 2 complex informational texts. Text will cover social studies or science topics in order to demonstrate the range of informational reading possible in the Common Core curriculum. Students will write 2 essays, one prose constructed response, PCR. That essay will be about the first text. The essay will be an analytical summary, informational or explanatory. One PCR analytical essay about both texts. The essay will be informational, explanatory, or opinion argument. We have been talking about the shifts in the Common Core for quite some time. This is not something new. We just need to be reminded of them. Instructional shifts means actions. We need to change something. We need to change what students are being asked to do. Last year we talked about some of the components of PARCC and some of the acronyms they use. In your handouts for today, I've given you a glossary of some of the most frequently used acronyms, such as PCR, Prose Constructed Response. Are you familiar with PBA and EOY? How well do you know these standards? More importantly, how frequently do they appear in your lesson plans and in your teaching and assessment practices? All of the online resources I mentioned today are now housed in one place on the Point Road portal, PARCC, Online Resources, Teacher, Top 5 Sites. I know we were going green, however, I am going to give you some handouts today. Many of you wrote down that you want resources to be more easily accessible and that you want them all in one place. I have asked that you bring your PARCC binders or folders since this is not the first time we have worked on this together, and you also have other items from other professional development resources that should be kept in an organized fashion. If they're going to become part of your daily work, you need to be able to know where to find them. For example, today we're going to have the ELL movies from the Marlboro superintendent are now all in one place. You're going to have the reading evidence tables and the rubrics as well as some other resources. Perhaps you might want to add a tab to your own website and organize the sites that you are using either personally or with your students so that they'll be always an easy reference for you to use. Same with the Google Drive. What things do you need easy access to? To begin with, evidence-based selected response, EBSR, questions will appear on both the PBA and EOY assessments. We can all be requiring evidence, even in our conversations with very young children. We also need to really understand that in terms of ourselves, The evidence that we collect is really about student learning and not about student completion of activities or assignments. Part A of the question will usually test content knowledge. Part B will usually test the student's ability to provide the correct evidence to support the answer to Part A. This type of item will be on both the performance-based assessment and the end-of-the-year assessment. Our classroom assessments must start having these types of questions on them. If you're using science and social studies assessments from 5 years ago, your students are not getting this type of practice. Also, the students have to get both parts correct in order to get credit. So if you're recording a test or grading a test and you're only giving them partial credit, that's not how the PARCC is going to be scored. This type of item will be on the performance-based assessment and also on the end-of-the-year assessment. As we have talked about in the past, Wendy only sees the students one time in a 6-day cycle. Classrooms have to be practicing these types of skills either using the PARCC games or another format. I have set up an account with Peerless. It is a site from Ohio that is all about tech tools. I can share what I've collected with whomever wants to try and experiment, either via email, Pinterest, or whatever. Each one of the tech tools has multiple items that the students can work with. Many of you have asked for specific examples, especially of the prose constructive response questions. I'm going to give you some samples of that today, and I've put other samples in Part 2 of the PowerPoint, which you'll have time to look at and explore between now and the next principals meeting. In addition, although we've talked about the evidence tables, I also think that everyone needs to know the PARCC rubrics. I'm giving those to you again today in your handouts as well. In the past, with the NJS rubric, we took the rubric and kept the integrity of it, but made the words simpler for grades K to 2. One task would be beneficial for us to do the same thing with the current PARCC rubric, figure out how we can use it in the lower grades. Many of you have indicated that you did not know about the research simulation task items. This is another area that I feel we need to be more cognizant of since they will be part of PARCC. This slide speaks to how students start out reading an anchor text that introduces a topic. They are then asked to gather details about the passage to support their understanding before they write a final essay, in which they are asked to synthesize their understanding based on this work. Third grade is a little different than the other grades when it comes to the research simulation task, RST. They will only utilize 2 passages, where all other grade levels will utilize 3 passages. Many of you asked for specific samples. Again, you will have some in your packets, and we'll do more in the PowerPoint Part 2. Everything we do is part of the big picture, student achievement. Think of a large blank canvas. As we teach, we are adding color and texture to the picture. If we only do one thing or use one color, the final product will be shallow and not very appealing. We need to make great instructional choices so that they will add depth and rigor to the education of our students. We do need to keep PARCC in mind, and if we do our purposeful teaching, to me that's different than teaching to the test. If we do the important teaching work that needs to be done, we're going to need to work smarter, not harder. Use your CPT times to delegate different tasks to different people. Use today's time to complete some of those things that you've listed on your KWL sheets. I also have some grade level specific resources for you, so this time can be differentiated to meet the needs of you and your students. Between now and our next meeting, I'm going to ask you to view the second part of this PowerPoint and work together with a partner or a small group to complete slides 12 through 15. In your handout, you have the article that is referred to as well as a printout of the slides. As you work together, talk about things that you think would be important mini lessons for your students and how you could utilize the gradual release of responsibility model to help them learn this process. Having paragraphs numbered and then having students go back for specific paragraphs and specific information is another important skill that we could be doing even in grades K to 2. I'm going to give you most of the time for this meeting to address some of your task items. We'll end with our monthly technology piece, and since our school is enrolled in the Hour of Code, Wendy and I thought you might be interested in seeing what our students will be doing this week, and it will also give you an opportunity to work together, if you wish to solve one of the puzzles from Frozen. When you hear the chime, it will be time for you to do the final portion of our meeting. If you need any assistance, I'll be here to assist you.